Radhe Radhe. Today is Saturday, 4th April 2026, and here we are presenting this recap video for today's Bhagavad Gita study session as we continue along our journey of chapter 13. Along with me, here is Mummy.
Radhe Radhe.
So I'll bring up the screen and we'll see the cover slide showing that after the usual recap quiz, we covered chapter 13 verses 13 and 14. As a reminder, the recap quiz was for last week's content, chapter 13, verses 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, that lengthy sequence as it appears in Swamiji's Holy Bhagavad Gita. As always, you can get all the information, the slides, the quiz questions, and so on by looking at the description for this video and going to the free community portal page. So with that, let us get started with chapter 13, verse 13.
Oh, chapter 13, verse 13. What a coincidence. Neyam yattat pravakshyami yajñatvamritam ashnute anadimat param brahma na sattanna sad uchyate.
Indeed, 13 and 13. So, chapter 13, verse 13 has the catchphrase instructions for immortality. As we saw in the session, Sri Krishna states that he is going to reveal that which ought to be known, and that is to help attain immortality. And he also gives the answer. We saw that as the beginningless Brahman. So, if you look at Swamiji's commentary, he talks about the example of a coin and day and night. We've talked in the past about desire and aversion as being two sides of the same coin. They coexist, one with the other. Likewise, day and night coexist, just as we learned today that for God, this beginningless Brahman, it's not just Brahman, it's Brahman as well, it's Paramatma seated in our hearts, it's Bhagwan as well, taking on the personal form. All these, God can be any of them at any point in time, wherever he wants. We'll see that in the next verse as well. But again, that is why Sri Krishna says that existence is not alone, it's non-existence as well. So the beginningless Brahman, which lies beyond existence and beyond non-existence, beyond the cause and effect as well of this material world, throughout the universe and transcendental to all of that. Again, coexisting, something you want to keep in mind. We did get a reminder in class, of course, of the train analogy. From a distance, it's only light that's going to be the Brahman aspect. So the three aspects of God. From far, that light, Brahman. As the train approaches, you can sense that there is some sort of, shape, form. It's getting to the aspect of Paramatma. You know that he's seated in our heart. We can't necessarily see him, definitely not with our material senses, but we know about the existence. And then finally, when a train stops completely in front of us, you can see the full form, coaches, labels, people, etc. That's Bhagwan, the analogy for Bhagwan in his personal form. Swamiji tells us that later in chapter 14, Sri Krishna will tell us that he is in fact the basis of the formless Brahman. So again, a preview as well as a reminder that God is all of these aspects, all of these entities at once, simultaneously, anywhere and everywhere. Ironically, contradictory qualities. But again, this is chapter 13, verse 13, with instructions for immortality to help us continue the expansion of the field, the knower of the field, and the supreme knower of the field. As a reminder, remember we covered in class as well the flyer for the revelation of knowledge to attain immortality. Where do you begin and where do you end? So remember, this is Sri Krishna giving his wisdom, his discourse. Arjun mesmerized or shocked here. There's a revelation coming up. There's a mystical box here with scriptures. That's knowledge, that entire compendium. Materially, we can only compact it in that much space. But the irony is, where do you begin? Where do you end? There's no beginning, there's no end. It's the beginningless Brahman. There's A to Z. This is the A to Z, everything of knowledge. Yet you can't start at A or you end at Z. It goes on and on. Our only hope is that we get that grace of God and Guru to be able to start somewhere. So that is the introduction for us of that knowledge to attain immortality. Next up, let us take a look at chapter 13, verse 14.
Sarvatah panipadam tat sarvatokshi shiromukham sarvatah shrutimaloke sarvam avritya tishtati.
So, chapter 13, verse 14, with again alliteration, but now as a question, the catchphrase is eyes everywhere. This part is straightforward because it's not just eyes of God, but it's also ears, hands, feet, etc., that are all everywhere. That is what is introduced in this verse. As we said in the session as well, there's a little bit of a pun here that may be harder to realize, but EYE, I, if we just make it the letter I, referring to the individual, and with mixed grammar, but I is everywhere. I is everywhere as a question? No, the soul, we as an individual are not everywhere, but also we want to get rid of egotism. We saw that last time in the sequence of 5 verses. Absence of egotism is an element of knowledge. So we don't want to be everywhere. We want that I to be distinct. And we want to get rid of that, in fact. We don't want egotism. But again, in the simple form, Sri Krishna says in chapter 13, verse 14, that his hands, his feet, his eyes, heads, faces, ears, all of them and much more are everywhere. Because we know this, God pervades everything in the universe. So again, when jnanis or people who have doubt or not enough faith try to box in a way God in and restrict God with abilities and manifestations, they get into trouble with that because we have ears, eyes, feet, etc., and they're saying that God can't, or there's only one aspect. God can take all of those. We know that. We've seen that in the prior verse as well. So again, this shloka that Swamiji gives us from the Chaitanya Charitamrit, kartum akartum anyatha karatum samarthaha. God can do the impossible, the possible, the impossible, and the reverse of the possible. And again, we cannot and should not be placing any constraints on God that he only has ears and eyes or he doesn't have ears and eyes. All of that is detrimental to spiritual progress. Of course, we know that our senses are material, God's are divine. We have one set of senses, God has an unlimited set. So again, God sees everything in the world. We've seen this, as all pervading. Today we see this as ubiquitous. Most of you know this, presumably, but you can revisit that in your dictionaries. It means, of course, everywhere, but also in specific senses of theology, it is very unique to God. God being everywhere, being all pervading, being omnipresent. And so Swamiji quotes from the Chandogya Upanishad as well, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, that is, everywhere is Brahman. But again, we shouldn't get tied to just that. Everywhere is Brahman. Also, everywhere is Paramatma. Also, everywhere is Bhagwan, as a reiteration of the 3 aspects of God. So Swamiji says if people are able to gather, millions of them pay their respect to God, venerate God at the same time, no issues. Everyone is equally heard. God accepts the prayers of all. God hears that. God sees that. All of that can happen simultaneously. Mummy, over to you now to talk us through some important Sanskrit words and your takes as well.
Thank you, Gagan. So from verse number 13, let's look at the word Neyam. Neyam means ought to be known. And another word is Amritam. Amritam means immortality. So what is happening in this verse? Krishna is saying that this is the knowledge that you ought to know. What is the knowledge? And that knowledge will take us to immortality. What is that knowledge? That is Brahmano hi pratisthaham. He says, I am the basis of the formless, beginningless Brahman. That is what Sri Krishna is saying, that he is beyond existence and non-existence. He is all powerful and all pervading. And there are these manifestations of the same supreme reality, that is Brahman, that is formless and attributeless. Gyanis worship that. And Gyanis worship the effulgence coming out of the toenail of the Lord. And Bhagwan is the personal form, Bhaktas worship that. And Paramatma is that God that resides within us. Now, formless and personal form, both aspects are of that supreme entity. They both exist everywhere and they are all pervading. So, in verse 14, uh, Sri Krishna is revealing, of course, in the next verse, he is revealing the contradictory qualities that manifest in God. If you all remember in chapter 4, verses 5 and 6, we have learned and understood that God is perfect and complete. It is both formless and with a form. In the formless, in chapter 7, verse 24, we understood that in the formless Brahman aspect, all of God's energies and potencies, they do exist. Remember that. But they are unmanifest. And in his personal aspect, his name, form, pastimes, virtues, abodes, and associates, they are all manifest by his divine energy. So once we understand this knowledge, then we will attain immortality. So let's look at verse number 14 and the words. Yes, I want the word sarvataha. Sarvataha means everywhere. It is a very common word, but we have to learn it here. And avrityaha. Avrityaha means pervades. What does this mean? That God is pervading everywhere. Okay, so we have to understand that He has innumerable extent. Okay, we cannot count or understand. Our intellect is material. So he can do the possible and the impossible. He is that all powerful God. So when we have hands, legs, and feet and everything, how can we see that that all powerful God has no hands and feet? So God Himself is saying that He has innumerable limbs and that they are everywhere. Anywhere you can see Him. He is present everywhere. Wherever you make offering, He will accept there itself. Wherever you make prayer, He will hear that. So God's limbs and senses are divine, ours are material. If you remember in chapter 7, we did learn that Sri Krishna is the highest reality and he possesses eternal divine attributes. Those are omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence. And Sri Krishna himself is saying, he is putting rest to all our doubts. He is saying that there is nothing higher than himself. He has said earlier also that everything rests in him as beads strung on a thread. So, in chapter 7, verse 26, Krishna has declared that God is omniscient. What does that mean? He has declared that he is Trikaldarshi. He knows present, past, future. God is all knowing. So, God is beyond the scope of our intellectual logic. So, here in this verse, he says that he accepts all offerings from devotees and he hears their prayers and witnesses everything that happens in the universe. So, there are examples given in our scriptures about pen, ink. With that same pen, we can write anything, any language, anything, any drawing. With that ink, we can write anything. Then there is example of gold. With that gold, we can make anything, be it necklace, earring, bangles. So similarly, we have to think about God, that God is everywhere, all pervading, can do anything and everything. So his limbs are divine and they are everywhere. So I'll quote this one. Saints have said, Chahu disi arati, chahu disi puja, chahu disi Ram, aur nahi duja. That is, proving that God is everywhere. Wherever you do arti, wherever you do prayers, God will listen from anywhere and take the offering from anywhere. And from Srimad Bhagavatam, there is another saying, Aham evasam evagre nanyad yad sad sat param paschadaham yade tach yo vashishyet so smeham. So this means that before this universe also he says he was there. There was nothing, it was only God. And after the creation of the universe also, whatever you see, that is also God. ये जो the sansar, the world you see, that is also God. So he is in existence and non-existence, beyond. Somewhere his um, attributes are manifested and somewhere they are hidden. So whatever you see is God, and when everything finishes, then also only God will be left. So we have to understand and be in acceptance and open our eyes to see God everywhere and put away all our doubts. Over to you, Gagan.
Yeah, thank you, Mummy. And in fact, a great set of connections to chapter 7, which coincidentally we've just about started in Life Lessons from the Bhagavad Gita. So again, if people join that, they'll see a lot of parallels to that. Good reminders that are helpful for us. So with that, I think we get towards the end of this. You've set the stage, I think, Mummy, for a spontaneous homework question that people can hopefully respond to. We actually did it in the class as well, but more of you can hopefully also respond here to the video via comments. Where do you see God in your day-to-day experiences or your perspectives? People generally talk about nature, etc., but it could be something tangible, something not tangible, whatever it is. Think through, let us know, give us some specific examples, give us some visuals to imagine perhaps, and you can put that as a comment to this video. We shall then see you next time. That's Saturday, 11th April 2026, 8 a.m. Central Time, 6:30 p.m. India time. Till then, thank you so much. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.